Hello YouTube, hope you're all keeping well out there. This is a VR that did the rounds probably a month or so ago, a good few weeks ago, but I was always wanting to make a video response to this. I find the subject matter quite interesting, and I have listened to a few other YouTubers do a video response to this. And originally it started from Roger Retro. Hope you're well, Roger Retro, and congratulations again on the 1,000 subs, really cool. Well deserved. But I've seen video. I haven't actually seen Roger's as well, so that's on my list to watch. I've saw Tooties, Retro Eds after drinking a good few wines, so I can't really remember much of that. Retro Rewind, Retro Bears I watched a few days back now. And there's also an interesting one from Bizarro's Pieces. I like Tommy's videos, subscribe to his channel, and he did something on this sort of subject a few years ago now, I think. But yeah, and obviously the subject matter is, why do we collect? Now, I think it's either something you have this affliction, you either have or you don't. I think there's something hereditary in this as well. My mum never really collected at all, but my dad did, and over the years I remember him collecting not comics, annuals, military die-cast things. He would pop into many different things and then just sell it all, where, you know, that's something I always, you know, thought was a shame. But his main thing that he collected was 1950s rock and roll records, and, you know, he'd take pride and joy over these things, and every now and again in an evening through the years, the decades, I remember him just getting his set out and getting his record cleaner and cleaning these things up. So there was a lot of like pride and care, and there was a curated kind of collection going on there, and that's something that I think I've got. Whether or not it was from Dad, you know, I'm sure that's something to do with it, but I've always been a collector myself. And yeah, as I was saying, just seeing Dad taking great care over the collection, and then putting the records carefully back and talking to me about the numerous pieces, and some of it obviously going over my head, some of it through the years you don't really care about. But yeah, in retrospect, I've always got that as a nice kind of thought about my dad. And going on to me now, you know, I've always been a collector. At school, primary, I would be collecting Panini stickers for football, annual football sticker books, E.T., He-Man, Transformer sticker book, all these different things. And in the playground, and getting your wedge out of your Parker jacket of stickers and swapping a few for a badge, as we used to call it, the foil. I think it was 3 standard stickers for a badge. Yeah, and just great times. Garbage Pail Kids cards, I used to love those. As many of us did, just real gross out cards. And I remember in a local shop there was like a set of luminous pens, Stedler pens, and each few weeks I'd save up my little bit of pocket money and get one of those. And I think there was something like 6 in a set, different colour luminous markers. Yeah, so it's always been in there, this collecting kind of gene. And then through the years, getting into collecting rave flyers in my teens. And what I will do is take you on just whether or not I put it up here in the corner, or I put on something at the end. The other things I collect now. So I do collect physical media, as my YouTube sort of banner states. So I've got lots of Blu-rays, a couple of DVDs that aren't out on Blu-ray. I'm getting into that and just having them as physical media. I'll show you that. And then I've got loads of CDs that I got back into over lockdown, and I've got amassed quite a collection now. But it's really curated, and it's stuff that I used to have in my CD collection in my teens when I was mad into my music. My music, movies, and games has always been a thing for me. And what else? Records is the other thing. This is where I keep my CD collection. The wife's not a huge fan of CDs at all, and they are quite unsightly things. So yeah, under the stairs is where they are. Just do a quick pan like that. some sort of ordering here, 50s, 60s, 60s, and then it comes into 70s here. Key players like Bowie, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, Beatles, Stones, Dylan at the top there. Then down into punk, new wave and post-punk. Wire there, just got this one. Really good at band and album, into like 80s pop and 80s. 90s indie. Rock and pop. Some grunge and heavier stuff. Noughties. Indie alternative, which is continued down here. And then into my jazz section. Love my jazz. Into my funk. Love my funk albums. More funk, hip hop, R&B, trip hop, dance, more old school dance, French house music. Do like my deep house music, 90s and noughties electronica. Some more alternative stuff there, ambient, chilled. Some classical albums. Love working and designing and doing artwork to classical. My acid jazz, some reggae, and my soundtracks, movies. I don't think my games up CDs I keep up in my room. So yeah, and soundtracks I love working to as well. So there's those. This area is still very much a work in progress in my front room. We've recently-ish had it redecorated. I've still got to fix this IKEA unit. It's just balancing on these speakers at the moment. Got my Bang & Olufsen record deck, which I love, from the 70s. Lovely design, really well built. My vinyl collection. Again, into a similar sort of ordering as the CDs, so going through the decades really, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. There's other little sub-genres in here as well, I think, so we've got some funk in here. And disco, funk, jazz down there. Yeah, into like more dance stuff. And then into more 80s, 90s and noughties, and then my soundtracks, both video games and game soundtrack vinyl. And I've been collecting vinyl on and off since my late teens, late, mid 90s onwards. Haven't really collected much recently. I've been focusing on the CDs, but I do love the sound of vinyl. So, certain albums and certain genres and eras of music just sound 20 times better on the record player. And then it's in a bit of a blimmin' mess. My Blu-rays. Again, I've not put these in chronological order, but more, I've got to sort this out. All my games. Now, regarding the games in here, the Wii U titles are there, party games and games that I'll play quite regularly, like basically Mario Kart now, and I still need to crack on that Sonic Lost World. Some Wii titles there for my daughter to start getting into. My PS5 collection, quite small. And all these PS4 games aren't all of my collection. Another, say, 50% is upstairs. But these are the games that are kind of party games, multiplayer games, arcadey games, pick up and plays, and games that I haven't played, and VR, my VR collection. So I will do a PS4 collection video at some point for those that care. But anyway, going back to the Blu-rays, they're all in order. So we've got animated, adult animation, more adult animation. This is more for my daughter's side of things. Sci-fi, more anime and animation, more sci-fi. This is a great movie. And fantasy, one of Connery's best performances, I think, underrated. Some comedies here, martial arts, Western and war movies at the back. And then over here, I've got my horrors at the top. All this needs reordering. It's just like a first stab, first phase. I'm really into my 70s noir thrillers at the moment as well. I'm collecting some of those up. This is brilliant with Gene Hackman, Night Moves. Yeah, just general movies there. There's more of a gangster flavour in here, and world cinema classics there. Manhattan, Casablanca, brilliant. Red Shoes, Once in Arabia, East of Eden. Again, more noir. Down here, there's more general sort of movies. Again, all this needs to be sorted out. Superhero movies in here, and other odds and sods, some of my wife's stuff. And that's it. I have picked up a few items of toys, but I wouldn't call myself a collector for that. I'm just getting the odd figures. I've stated in numerous pickups videos that kind of punctuate the collection. Just they're only things that really register and connect with me on a nostalgic level. Someone mentioned, I think it was Russ, that collecting might be, or there's a form of mental illness there. I wouldn't go so far as to say mental illness, but I'd certainly say there's obviously a mental thing there. And I do think there's something in people that are OCD, which I am. You know, I'm a bit of a neat freak, but I am very, very clean and sort of orderly. And I think there's a link, a correlation between maybe OCD and collecting as well. Don't know, maybe there's something in that as well. All right, I'm going to be looking over here because I've got a series of notes, just bullets. It's not a script or anything. Right, yeah, video. Let's get back to the video game side of things. So, I got my first job as a graphic designer, professional job in about 2000. And from there, I was using the internet more, and I started researching video games. You know, it's always there, my passion. Been a gamer ever since, I don't know, 6, 7 years old. And, you know, if we had money back then, we would collect far more games, I think. I'd definitely build up a library. I think with the Spectrum, it was different. I was always recording tapes to amass more games. So I guess there was a sense of a collection back then. But when I got to the Master System, the games were so expensive. My library would be about maybe 4 or 5 max. And then you play one game to death, take it in and exchange it second hand and get another one and exchange games with your mates. And that was the same for the Super Nintendo. Not so much for the N64, because by then I was working, so I could collect a few more games, but I'd never have more than, I'd say, 8, 10 max. And the same going through after that. I'd always finish a game and quickly flip it on to exchange and purchase another new game. But anyway, going back to my job and discovering the internet, I discovered emulation, and that was just like, I just thought it was magic. I bought my first computer for my first job, and it was a G4 Apple Mac computer. Cost the bloody earth, but I loved it. And so from that, I was playing all the Master System games I was finding. Certainly the SNES, that was the first thing I went to. Yeah, and a few Mega Drive games and things like that back in those days. And you build a collection of digital files, and it was just great. I just thought, this is just utterly fantastic. Anyway, I was quite happy with doing that all through the years, kind of up to 2013. I split with my ex, and just started using YouTube. Discovered YouTube, really, and I always thought YouTube was a place where, a bit like the old thing MySpace, where it's just like people, I don't know, cat videos, or you know, people just doing daft things, a bit of karaoke, you know, and just like real poor videos. But I started finding collection videos on toys. Was the first few I was watching, because I was researching old cartoon intros and things like that, and then it led in to toys. and then video games, and I started noticing a few channels that were obviously the, what's he called, the American guy, Angry Video Game Nerd, and Johnny Millennium, Happy Console Gamer, and later GameSack, and then bringing it into the English YouTubers with 2T. Back then it was, what's he called? He doesn't really do YouTube anymore. Dave, Arcade Dave. He had all his SNES collection, and then he was getting into arcade machines. I forgot his name, but and much more. And from that, I was like, yeah, games. They've always been part of my life. They're a thing that I love. I'm knowledgeable about them. It was that nostalgia, sense of nostalgia as well, and bringing back that nostalgia to a current day. So when I see a game case and a cover, I'm instantly taken back to playing it back in the day. My collection, I'm not a completist, or completionist. I only pick and choose games that I either had and want to play, and critically are very good that I missed. So again, it's another, going back to what I was saying about my dad, it's a curated kind of collecting. And and 2T touched on this as well. It's good to set up like a framework when you collect. And when I started collecting, I was like, right, I'm just going to go 16-bit. Definitely SNES. I started getting those games in. My Zelda, Castlevania, Super Pro Protector, Contra 3, and Secret of Mana. There was a definite list of games, but as you research the Super Nintendo, your knowledge expands. You see what other games there are, and it's like, that sounds really good, and you draw comparisons. So your knowledge helps fuel the collection as well. And I was starting with that, and maybe the Mega Drive, but I didn't own a Mega Drive. And then I thought, right, and 16-bit is my favourite generation. And I thought, I'm not just happy collecting for the SNES. What I would like to do is almost just collect for the systems that I own through the decades. And that's what I've done, in theory. So obviously starting with the Spectrum, Master System, SNES. PlayStation is a slight deviation, but I played the PlayStation so much over numerous friends that I would borrow it, bring it back for a few nights, and play Tekkens and my Metal Gears and things. Onto the N64, which was my console of that generation choice. Then I got the Dreamcast, GameCube, and Wii U, PlayStation 3, PS4, now PS5. And going back to what I was saying, so I'm going to go all over the place here. 2T mentioned in the video, it's going to come up with a framework when you start collecting, otherwise you could just be going everywhere and just sort of wasting money, time and energy, really, collecting any old thing. So that's the way I decided to collect: the systems I owned and the games that I owned and wanted to play, and the great games that I missed. That's generally what it was. And again, it's nostalgia, and then it's almost like a visual video game journal of kind of my life, really. That maybe my daughter will get into gaming, I'm not going to push it for sure, but she's come up a few times and she started to like play with certain controllers. She loves my Pac-Man unit and other bits and bobs she's forever grabbing and running off with. And now that I've actually moved into my new house, I started amassing games and putting it into my then girlfriend's and now wife's house. I moved in with her, and now we've bought another house together for the last 5 years, and she was really kind and let me have one of the little rooms here as a games room. So when I come in here, the sense of peace and joy that it brings through that nostalgia, it's kind of my happy place. Life can be a fucking struggle sometimes with this, that, and the other. World's messed up in many ways at the moment. I work hard. I don't really go out much anymore. I've got a daughter, and that's hard work. That's a graft in itself. So when I come in here, it's a sense of peace, and just a remembrance of good times. Again, peppered with some toys, some comics, and just it's kind of like me blasted all over the room. if you will. So, and then, you know, moving into YouTube, that I've used that as a kind of time capsule as well, and maybe, you know, that hopefully my channel will get taken down and it'll live on past me, and I've got friends and my daughter who can see these little videos and maybe get something out of it, who knows. But I do it for me, and obviously meeting some fantastic YouTubers, you guys out there as well, in the comment sections and things like that. Anyway, back to collecting. It can get addictive, you know, that is a downside. And I don't necessarily, I kind of allocate X amount of money per month for it, but obviously bills get paid, all the food's sorted out. First thing, as soon as I get paid, bosh, that's all done. And then through the month I've got a little bit of money, and I'm forever kind of like flipping bits. You don't really see this in the videos that I make as well, behind the scenes, as many of us do. Old games or just other bits that you buy in bundles, flip on, and then recoup some of that money to then feed it to the collection. So I'm forever doing that, and really pleased with what I've amassed. Used to go to loads of charity shops. They're getting just few and far between now. I used to have a beauty just before lockdown, through lockdown, and afterwards, but that's gone. And that is, you know, me and my wife still get a bit weepy about that. That was such a fantastic charity shop, and really good with prices. You can find some bargains in there. Alas, it's now gone. And I'm not gonna lie, no one really, I don't know if anyone's really touched on this. Again, in this video I might be just spewing out stuff that many of you guys and other tubers have commented on, and forgive me for that, but this is just for me, and maybe there's obviously some similarities there, but I don't think anyone's really touched on the investment side of things. I mean, you know, there is that thing, yeah, you collect, and you collect it for the right reasons, to game, and of course I do. I absolutely love it. But I've got friends that are, say, bankers or builders in those sort of trades, and naturally they've got their headspace in buying property and land and things like that. That isn't for me. I'm not built that way. I don't have that skill set, that knowledge, but I know my media, you know, my records, my movies, my toys, my games, you know, I've done a lot of quote unquote research just for me, just through pure enjoyment, and you know, obviously amass a decent knowledge of the subject matter. So, you know, I'm not going to be in a position to wisely invest money in certain things. You know, the fucking banks and their interest rates are utterly just dreadful. So I thought, you know, well, I've definitely got a collection here that's worth far more than what I've actually paid. You know, and that's not gloating or anything like that. It's just a simple fact, because I've been quite wily, quite savvy with the pickups, flipping stuff on. You know, it's getting harder to do now to find a bargain. I think it is. It's still possible, but it's doable. But at the end of the day, my collection's in a place that I'm so happy with. Don't need to get any more, but there's certainly games that I have on my lists. You know, from a GameCube, I've got about 4 games, maybe 3. Master System about 7 or 8. Wii U's sort of finished. Dreamcast is sort of finished, although there's 1 or 2 I'd like. N64's done. You know what I mean? And I don't think for those collections that I've missed anything through my research and watching YouTube and best ofs and things like that I've missed. Am I getting off topic here? I don't know. Anyway, and again, another thing that's a bit iffy is collecting modern games. I'd say modern being from arguably the PS3, but I don't include that in what I'm about to say. Certainly the PS4 and onwards, where you're buying a product and the full game isn't on there. You know, we all know the bullshit about getting a brand new game home, cracking nuts to play it, stick it in, massive X amount of gigabyte patch coming in. But it's sad times, you know. You don't have the game on the disc, and I'm wondering, you know, from the PS4, PS5, is it worth collecting them? I'm in that place. But I love the PS4, so I have been collecting for it. But the PS5 has been really, this generation has been really disappointing. I might touch on that in a video. It's going to be very sort of negative, I'd say. But I just don't think it's reached the potential it has. Yes, we're about, what, halfway through its generation now. PS5 Pro coming on the horizon. I don't know. And when it all goes, which it inevitably will go, all digital, that's when I'm really going to take a real step back from modern gaming and just sort of really pick and choose the games I purchase. Because at the end of the day, it's basically just a long-term potential renting of the game. If their end, the developers, the companies, deem a game, you know, there's some legality, say, involved in the game, they can just sort of get rid of it, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's just the way it is. You don't actually own this thing, and that's me going back to really enjoying and collecting for physical media. So I think that's kind of it. Yeah, who was it that mentioned about the collector modern games? I think it was Carl. Was he called Woody? Woodwin? Carl Woodwin? It's Carl, isn't it? The Northerner. I like him. He's a funny lad. Funny guy. And then, you know, am I going to keep hold of the collection? For the foreseeable, I am. I've gone through dark phases of like, oh, what's the point? You know, and I remember Dad selling stuff off, as I mentioned at the start of this vid, and it's something that I really want to avoid doing because I think I'd really regret it, and numerous people in their videos have said that as well. Tutti. I don't think I would, but then what's the point in having all this? You know, if some big financial issue come along, you know, I'd sell some of this off, no probs, but I'd be wanting to really recoup a lot of the money and the time and the energy that I put into getting this. I'd like to get that a good amount back, whereas if you're selling a collection, you're going to take quite a big slice, a percentage hit off the overall value of a particular collection. But at the same time, you know, I can't take it with me. It might come to the time where, you know, to help with early retirement, I sell it, and or we go on a lovely tour of the world, me and the wife, you know, in our twilight years. So there's, you know, all these things are possibilities. Life comes first. This is second, but it's there to help support, I suppose, the life. And I think that's kind of it. Will I be collecting in 20 years? I've put, you know, when I'm what, pushing 70 by then. Maybe, yeah. I'll certainly, definitely, if I was to sell the collection, a lot of it, there's the SNES, for example, and a few key Master System games, GameCube games. There'd be a key band of games for each generation that I just would want to hold on to. So yeah, that's kind of it, I'd say. Yeah, I think so. Just looking at my bullet notes. So yeah, I know there's another video going around regarding the 10 video game questions, and I think that come from Tony. What's he called? Something Fighter 2. Tony Fighter 2? I forgot. Sorry, Tony. I might try and get around to that, and then there'll be another VR out by then. That I'm just so far behind with all these things, and I am getting ready. I've got all my bits down there for my July, August pickups video. Just waiting for one more thing to arrive, and then it'll be a true encapsulation of my July and August pickups. So yeah, hope I didn't waffle on too long. I'll yeah, catch you in another video. Everyone take care out there, stay safe, and I'll see you again.